Alright guys, so I'm going to be doing the study guide for the test on quadratics. So question 2 is asking what are the zeros of the quadratic. So step 1 to finding the zeros of the quadratic is getting the function of whatever the equation is, getting it into factor form. Look, for us, this is already in factor form for us. So it's going to be easy. Again, you find the factors. Once you find them, you got to take each factor. So take the 2x minus the 3 and set it equal to 0. And that's my first factor. And also take the second factor, that's plus 5, and also set it equal to 0. Finally, the last step is just solve for x. So the first one, so subtract 5 to both sides. You get x equals -5. That's the first zero. The second one has an extra step, so add 3 to both sides. You add 3 to both sides. You get 2x equals 3. And then to leave x by itself, divided by 2. So you get x equals 3/2. So the zeros are 3/2 and -5. That's it. Those are your zeros. Number 2, what are the zeros of the quadratic? This one asking the same question. Well, the problems are not in factor form, so you gotta get them into factor form. This is using the quadratic formula. You can do that, or also you can do split in the middle. Split in the middle, we did that like 2-3 weeks ago, but it also works. Pretty much what you're gonna do first is multiply the -3 and the 6. -3 times 6 gives you -18. Then it's staying. After you get the -18, now you have to look for two numbers that will multiply together, give you -18, and when added give you a +7. So that -18 and that +7. So two numbers I can think of, 9 times 2. Oh, 9 times 2 definitely gives you 18. And I have to arrange them so that the 9 and the 2 give me a +7. That would mean the 9 would have to be positive and the 2 would have to be negative. So -9 and +2. So I'm going to rewrite this as 6x squared, the plus the 9x minus the 2x and the -3 equals 0. So pretty much, if you notice here, I only wrote the problem differently. The 9x and the -2x, if you were to combine these two, it goes back to 7x. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to split the middle pretty much here. I'm going to take these two, and I'm going to take these two. Remember to always put a plus in between them, because I'm not multiplying them, and I'm adding them. I'm just separating them. So what can I take out of 6x squared and 9x? I can take out 3x. So 3x, and what I'm left inside is 6x and 6x squared. I took out 3x. I'm left with 2x. Plus 9x, I took out that 1x and I took out a 3, I'm left with 3. Let's not forget that plus in between that. Out of this, I can take just -1, pretty much. I can take out the -1 out of there. I'm left with 2x, positive. I took out the negative, and I'm left with +3. Took out that negative. And finally, notice that this is identical to this. That means that these two will become 1. 2x plus 3. And the 3x and the -1. I'm going to put them together. I'll say 3x minus 1. That's it. Factor form. Alright, you have it in factor form. It's all set. For you to, now you have your factors. You can do the exact same thing that I did on the first one. Find the zeros, pretty much take the 2x plus 3, set it equal to 0, solve for x. Then take the 3x minus 1, set it equal to 0, solve for x. And that's it. That's how you find your zeros for number 2. And you don't have to use this method, the split in the middle. But that's a perfect example for split in the middle. And you will do the same thing. Again, multiply first, last, gives me that. Look for two numbers that when multiplied give me -18, when added give me +7. And follow the steps. Number 3, given the expression x squared plus 2x minus 24, and then explain how to use the factors to find the zeros. So writing factor form, two numbers that will multiply that give me -24. So two numbers that will multiply that give me -24. And when added give me +2. I could think of 6 times 4. 6 times 4 is 24. 6 times 4, 6 and 4. Somehow the 6 and the 4 have to make a +2 when added. Or to make 6 positive and 4 negative. 6 times -4, -24. +6 and -4, +2. This works. Factor form, x plus 6 and x minus 4. There you go, factor form. Explains how to use the factors to find the zeros. Set the factors equal to 0, solve for x. That's it. So go to the next one, number 4. Given zeros at 8 and 6, write the quadratic function in factor form. So here they're already giving you the zeros. Well, it's pretty much going backwards. Here it's pretty much telling you the x is equal to 8. We'll go backwards. What would you do to take that to take the 8 away here and put it on this side? So this becomes 0. You would subtract 8 to both sides, and you get x minus 8 equal to 0. So this is going to be one of your factors. Do the same thing with the other one. X equals 6. Subtract 6 to both sides. You get x minus 6 equal to 0. That means x minus 6 is your other factor. That means write the quadratic function in factor form. It would be, the answer would be x minus 8 and x minus 6. Pretty much the opposite of what these are given. -8, -6, x minus 8, x minus 6. That's it. Given the zeros, write the equation in factor form. Same thing. I'll change the sign of this, so it'll be x plus 2, and change the sign of that, so it'll be times x minus 7. That's it, factor form. Now this one, given the zeros at -4 and -6, write the quadratic function in factor form. Same thing, but here it's multiple choice, so it might be even easier. Well, I'm going to apply the same thing. The -4 will become a +4, so x plus 4. And the -6 will become a +6, so x plus 6. Which one of these 4 is the answer? The answer is D. Alright, jumping to the next one, number 7. Given f of x equals 2x squared minus 5x minus 3, write the quadratic function in factor form. Number 7, again, you would have to use split in the middle. Alright, another method you can use, which it's a little bit more orthodox and it's maybe a little bit more complicated, you can try like just trial and error. So you know the first two numbers here have to multiply to give 2x squared. There's only, I know I'm gonna have a 2x and an x in these two, because 2x times x, it'll give me the 2x squared. Now here it's where it gets tricky, the numbers that go here. I know that the numbers, when I multiply them, they have to give me -3. So if I choose this number here to be 1, then this has +1, then this has to be -3, because -3 times +1, it'll give me -3. But here's the thing, when I start simplifying this, it's 2x times x, that gives me 2x squared, and 2x times -3, that gives me -6x, and 5 times 1x, that gives me +1x, and 1 times -3, that gives me -3. Lucky me. This simplifies to 2x squared minus 5x minus 3, which is precisely what I want. Notice that I'm checking that I'm actually doing it right. Notice that I didn't go for, oh, that's the answer, therefore. I checked it was actually the answer. These numbers, I just guessed them, and I was lucky enough to get them to be the right numbers. Maybe I could have chosen I could have chosen the numbers to be in different places. I could have chosen the -3 to be here and the +1 to be here. I could have done that, and that would have given me a totally different answer. All right, you want to see 2x times x, that gives me 2x squared, and 2x times 1, that gives me +2x, and then -3x times x, that gives me -3x, and then again -3 times 1, that's -3. When I simplify these two, I get -1x, not -5x. So be careful. In this case, the right answer is this. You can try this way too. It's a little bit more risky, but if you're having trouble with the quadratic formula maybe, or split in the middle, try this out, as long as it works. Well, again, make sure to double check that you actually get back to this, like here. I think that's wrong. So this is the answer. 2x plus 1 and x minus 3. All right, number 8, write two equivalent functions for the following graph. This is really nice. Now here, this point here where it crosses the x-axis, this point as well, this point is -2 and this point is +3. These points, -2 and 3, they are my zeros. These points are my zeros. How do I write them in factor form? Well, if -2 is a 0, then I can write x plus 2. And if +3 is another 0, I can write x minus 3. There you go. That's one form. It says here to write two equivalent functions. So this is factor form. Make it into standard form. Multiply x times x. That gives me x squared. Then x times -3 gives me -3x. 2 times x gives me +2x. And 2 times -3 gives me -6. Simplify this to get x squared minus x minus 6. There you go. Factor form, standard form. Two different ones. There you go. All right, so this is going to be page 1 of the study guide.